Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to Let's Do Some More Game Development. Um, Yesterday we kind of jumped in and got a bunch of stuff done. We got a lot of state management figured out for enemies, got some invincibility frames set up for the character, got transitioning between zones. It was a pretty productive stream. Continued doing some work off camera last evening. Not a whole heck of a lot though. Let's pause this. Okay, so we can see here that there's an enemy. We can walk up, and if we get in front of his front range, he'll spot us and come after us. When it's our turn, we can end the battle instantly using a debug command. Enemy is defeated. Interesting, we came back in a walk cycle there. There might be a bug on that. Oh, there is a new bug. Interesting. Okay, I'll have to take a look at that eventually. That's not a new bug. Oh, I know what that is. Cool. Okay, so that's a feature that had been broken. So the other thing that I did beyond having the enemies sorry, I was explaining what we did last stream, but basically we got it so the enemies die, and also if we switch back and forth between scenes, they come back. Pretty straightforward for the most part. The thing that I worked on after stream was that when we were picking up this item and saving its state, aka if you had collected an item, that item wouldn't reappear, was this cutscene, quote unquote, this collect animation wasn't playing. So I fixed that so it is functional. And the other thing is the game wasn't pausing when we were performing those animations, so you could still move around and stuff. We'll wait for the enemy to come back up this way, but I basically implemented a rough kind of pause system for everything. So now the enemies pause and the character pauses. You can't put any input in except press A to continue. And then after we finish, everyone goes back to their normal state and they continue moving. That's the primary thing I worked on. In getting that up and running... Oh no. Oh, he tagged me right before he started retreating. Oh, they all go before I get a chance to run. And by run, I mean defeat them. But we're noticing when we come out, we're like walking for a second there. Same thing when we go into here, there's like this walk. I think what that is I didn't have the character properly pausing in yesterday's stream, and that was part of the thing that I had to rebuild in order to get these cutscenes operational. And I think the walk animation is when he's transitioning between zones. It is triggering a walk animation, which I probably had a long time ago. There's probably some movement involved there too. I probably walked the character in for a moment, but the walk stuff isn't functional at this point, which is the next thing we're going to be looking at. That's cool though. I hadn't noticed that before starting streaming, that was functional. So it's like as I slowly convert more things over to the 3D kind of system, because we used to be 2D and we're moving into 3D. And as we switch more things over to 3D and get them operational, I keep finding new features that I had forgotten about because we'd been so deep into other things. It feels like over the past 2.5 years, there's been so many systems that we've built up, like UI and combat and dungeon and progression, that it's like as I'm slowly pulling all the pieces together and getting everything operational at the same time, especially now, like I said, switching to 3D and getting everything working in 3D again, it's like, I don't know, it's really, I keep finding gems that I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that, didn't I? I did spend like a weekend working on it. Anyways, so that's kind of the brief explanation at the start of the YouTube video for the archive purposes. I'm going to jump in and we're going to start working on, check my notes. Yeah, it's cutscenes. I think it's really just starting with the 3D conversion of the old 2D scene is going to be the first thing, is building up the environment. And then we need to take a look at the actual, well, everything else. Did Unity just crash? There we go. Didn't reset properly. Let's get that over there. Cool. Where I want to select this and go to the jailbreak cutscene. I don't think we need to save anything that we did in here, so we'll switch to 2D mode so everything looks right. So this is essentially where we had a cutscene set up. I don't think this will work if I hit play because everything's been half converted. I am going to probably just take a screenshot of this though, just so that I have a representation on the other monitor of what I'm trying to recreate. Let's grab the snipping tool. And just keep this over here for reference. Okay, and we had a lot of waypoints. These are all spots that the characters are moving to. That'll be the main code for today that we're going to have to work out, is how we switch everything over to the new 3D nav mesh. It honestly should be a pretty straightforward change. Let's duplicate this scene. Rename it. Eventually, we'll probably just delete the other one, but for now, we'll hold this as reference. And then let's exit out of 2D mode. And we need some geo. So let's start by creating a cube. Let's create an empty parent, which we will call world geo. World geo should be at 0, 0. And then we'll put this cube underneath and we'll start positioning. So this will be the floor. Let's put the floor at 0, 0, 0. We need some pieces. Let's drag over this and let's copy and paste our lighting so that our lighting settings are the same. We probably don't need any of the transition points. We probably do want a spawn point though, so we'll bring the spawn point over. Yeah, there was an old dead one here. We're gonna have to clean up a lot of this. Is there a global scene checker? There is. It's gonna need a spawn entity, jailbreak, test spawn. Okay, and then when we hit play, that's what we want to spawn the character on for walking around purposes. And then anything else from this scene that we want? Honestly, I'll probably just steal the parent objects. Because these should all just be empty objects, right? Yeah. They should all be zeroed out as well. Just select them all. Just for organization purposes, try and keep things consistent. Okay, and then just fix up the names. If I double click, I should be able to edit, but it's giving me trouble, so we'll just do it this way. Okay, and then what is this environment? Oh, right, that's the actual space I have. So we want to probably close this now. We're going to run into a problem that we ran into yesterday as well. So let's remove this, and then I'm going to go fix that. One thing we're making an assumption on in our dungeon state management, which we got a crash yesterday when we were testing the item stuff, is we kind of assume that there's always an item and enemy manager. We fixed the item one so it now no longer fails. Let's turn on the background music again. We fixed it so that if there is no item manager found, we don't crash. We need to do the same thing up above for the enemies, because there won't be enemies in the cutscenes, so we need this logic. Yeah, so as long as it's not null, then we'll execute the dungeon stuff, otherwise we won't. Okay, that should fix that problem, and we don't need to bring over the enemy managers. Okay, now the perspective of this scene, which I'm going to need to delete this here in a bit, but I guess I don't have to delete it. I could just toggle it Well, there's a bunch of random props and stuff too. Okay, regardless, the primary direction of this scene is this way. How big is this? What if we try and match the sizing? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 tiles long. And then maybe we go 35? 35 long? And then that I'm not so sure on. It looks like each cell section is so jank, it's really hard to tell. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe 5 per cell. We could try 35. It doesn't need to be exact. I just want to get something that feels similar to the scene I had already worked out. We can always build it up more after. So let's drag this under floor. Okay, and then let's go back to 3D mode. That's what I'm trying to hit. And yeah, for now, let's just toggle these off. And then this is at 0, 0. One question I have about the previous scene was the previous scene's floor. Is at some random number because we didn't zero out the floor geometry. It's at -1. Okay, that makes sense. And that seems valid. I just want to be consistent as I build up my world. So the floor starts at -1. So that the objects that we walk on will be at position 0, which is clean. And then what did we want to do? We want to kind of go into... Oh, I don't have hotkeys set up. Let's go shortcuts. And under Pro Builder... do that so that we can easily select the faces, and then we're going to want to drag this out till this is about 35. Let's go there, and then let's grab this side and we'll drag it out to 35 as well. So close. Alright, next up, let's grab that preview cube. Well, we can just hit build. Make another one. We'll add this under here. We'll make this the walls. Go to object select mode by hitting 1. That is on Y0. This is on Y1. Okay, that all lines up. Checking my reference. Looks like we were 6 tiles away from the side before the wall started. Okay. Oh, interesting. Don't know if that matters. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. I'm going to bring this in a bit. Shouldn't really see anything on this side anyways. Most of the camera work is going to be more in this direction. And then we're bringing this across approximately 9. Okay. And then I'm actually going to pull this back one. Bring this... Oh, actually, I need to bring this back a lot more. Just trying to figure out, like, again, we're trying to match this up a little bit with this. Let's bring this back on camera. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tiles. But the majority of this tiles is actually, like, there's going to be a gap in behind. So if I was to just grab this, bring it out to 9, and then grab the other face and extrude it all the way out to here, or even just grab and pull all the way out to here, obviously we're not going to have those gaps that we want. And if what I've found to be easier is to kind of build the empty space instead of removing the empty space. So if we bring back up that clip, so this is, it looks like we were approximately 1, 2, 3, and this would be hiding 1, so 4 tiles deep. So I'm going to guess that we want to go 5 tiles in, and then extrude out, and then we can grab this, extrude, and pull this out this way to start. Okay, that's starting to give me the shape I want. Now the question is, what are we doing here? So this goes out another 4, and then I think we pop out 1 more here, and we do that as an extrusion so we can extrude this side out, like so. Okay. And then we're going to want to bring this face back in. Is it about 1 in between? Looks like about 2 in between. So... and it looks like each cell is about 1, 2, 3, and technically the wall hides the 4th cell. So these are 4x4 spaces. That sounds right. So we can well, that's not what we wanted. We extruded the floor by accident. We can extrude out here, extrude this out. So this side is supposed to be 1 larger, so we should be able to just grab and fix that like so. Okay, and then I think before we go too much further, we probably want to change our snap settings to 0.5 and raise this up. We had kind of decided in our other scenes that we liked having a little bit of height, going up half a unit, and then I've been liking extruding out the top. Actually, we should wait to do that to the end, because otherwise we're going to have constant problems with having to grab multiple faces. So we can we can select the whole top section and extrude the top after. Okay, so this is essentially a section of cell, which realistically, is there a reason that we can't just do that? Little bit, because technically now we're getting 4 in between here, which I think we can resolve. I hadn't gone back far enough. We still had 2 walls on top of each other. We're going to bring this back out after, but I think if we just do this, and then go to object mode, duplicate, and pull this over. Now we're going to get the spacing that we want. And then we can come back here after we've duplicated those objects and bring this one out a little bit further. Sweet. And then we can do the same thing by duplicating and rotating these objects by 180 degrees. Now, from the reference photo, how much space did we have between these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a little wider than what we normally do. Normally we do 4, but I guess that's more for narrow spaces anyways. So we want to bring these in 1. And then in the old 2D version, we had a 4th cell at the end. Like so. Those are lining up. And then this one needs to extend out, which again meets us directly to the edge of the wall. Okay. So that's working. It's not what I wanted to bring up. I wanted to bring up this. On the far end, we go in 2 more spaces before we hit a ramp going up. I'm actually going to create a new cube for that, for this section. We're going to start on this side. I accidentally had both sides selected. Okay. Gotta be careful of my hotkeys. I accidentally duplicated it instead of extruding there. And then for the time being, I think we can just pull all of these to the back edge. I am debating whether or not I should be maybe building up the whole jail cell before copying them. Like right now there we go. When we start adding in like the bars and stuff, we're gonna have to duplicate every piece of that object. It would be cleaner and easier if I had have just like built up one entire cell with like the bed, the torches, whatever I needed inside of it, and then duplicated and moved it around. But we can still do that later if we really have to. For now, let's just get the shape right. Let's extrude this out. And then we will grab the edge and bring it down to create a ramp. Okay. That's feeling close. Now, we had much higher walls in the 2D version. We might be able to still... Well, we can do whatever we want, but for gray boxing, it doesn't really matter that much. have to extrude, otherwise we'll stretch pieces we don't want to. And this is all floor. Yeah, this is a good question. Technically, this is another floor piece, I think. I think I might want to do the walls as a separate piece here. We undid our rename and move. Okay, we'll fix that. And then let's spawn another cube. Preview cube, you want to come over here. We'll do this probably as 2 halves. How far out do we go on this? Looks like this is 2. Let's go back to 1. I should check to see if there's a hotkey for... if there is a hotkey for changing the... snapping amount. It would be really... I bet you I could write something. There's probably an API accessible that I could like write some sort of hotkey to switch the increment amount. Even just plus minus to like increase or decrease the snap amount by like 0.5 would be really handy. Okay. That feels close to correct. Then we can 180 flip that. Oh, we'd need to scale. We'd need to actually, like, it's fine. Thinking about how I want to elevate some of these pieces, but I think we're okay here. And then if we grab the player spawn point, we should be able to we should be able to pop into this world. Well, maybe, maybe not. There's gonna be a bunch of cutscene triggering stuff. Yeah, we have this temp script that triggers cutscenes, so we probably want to turn that off. These are all just waypoint parents. Yeah, okay. Let's just give this a try. That was pretty cool. Hello, unlockable characters. Oh, I didn't refill my water before starting. I'll be right back. Hold! Check out my cool scene and admire it while I go grab water. Alright, hydration complete. Much good. So this is completely wrong, actually, coming back and sitting down and looking at this. Let's bring up the cutscene from... from the YouTube channel, in fact. Because we recorded a small clip of this. Where is that? Here, first pass. So we got the scale wrong. We made a interesting mistake in that 1 meter doesn't quite match in 2D. Even if we were bringing the walls up, huh, okay. Also, why is it so dark? Did we not bring over the lighting? This has the directional light in it. Huh. Interesting that the lighting's different in this scene. Many questions. And sadly, not a lot of answers. So, okay, fundamentally, I think the mistake I made was assuming that one tile in our 3D space was the same as one tile in our old 2D space. That's not exactly correct. When the camera is fully zoomed in, we see only 3 cells and you don't see across the other side. It might be that I just can't use it as a direct reference like I was, like actually counting tiles, and I can use it as like a template for like the space I need, but we might need to just rebuild. The character is the same size, though. He is the same dimensions. Like, if we were to, like... I think he's really close, which is what I was aiming for originally, but... Okay, curiosity. What if we just double it? What if we just take all the objects, the entire world, and we just scale it by 2? And then where is our... Where's our character spawn gone? That looks closer. Still not actually exact, though. Partly because we can just see the fact that there's a bit of this over here. Although, honestly, that's probably this here, too. We do see more of this cell. Interesting. Processing. So at this point, it doesn't really matter if it matches the old version. It's really just, do I think it looks okay? And I think... I think the character looks a little small in this space. Like, they look visibly tiny in comparison to the size of the walls. I mean... What if we... have to manually click. That's about the height that we have everywhere else. Does that feel better? Or does that feel worse? Huh. And the reason I'm referencing the old one is just that the old one is something that I got close to correct in the past. It was something that I was happy with. And so, like, trying to get it to emulate that old look just is about, like, trying to get something that is at least near what I already was liking. Let's go back to the old one. I'm going to take a quick... Is my screenshotting tool working here? It is. Okay, I can hit a button and I can get a screenshot of what we have currently, which I'm also going to open up over here. So we have this screenshot as well for reference, but let's go back to the old version that we had before that was super zoomed out. Well, it's not that it's zoomed out, it's that the world is just really tiny. Which isn't necessarily an immediate bad thing, it's just not quite what we were expecting. Oh, there's still a scale level on something. These tiles are obviously stretched. There we go. That's better. I do like that turn though, so I think that's switching from like a... There's like a virtual pan camera in here, which we start selected on, and it has a lower priority, and then it switches to our main character camera, I think, because it has a higher priority. So we get this nice sweeping effect, which is kind of cool. Like, I mostly want to keep us on fixed, like, perspectives for our world, but God, that is also really neat looking. This is definitely too small, though, to be clear. Can we get some more light in here also? Like, this is a little bothersome. Really weirded out that the lighting is so different between the two scenes as well. So this doesn't feel like... The fact that this brick isn't one character wide... makes these spaces feel really tiny. Like, I mean, it is a jail cell, is what we're going for, like an old medieval jail. A dungeon. Where's my reference photo? Because we want to have a bed and a nightstand. Let's also take another look at... Let's save this scene, first off. And then let's go back over here and take a look at this scene, which is our existing dungeon that we had built up. And I was feeling pretty okay about this space in 3D. So the walls are about one character high and wide. But we have much wider spaces here, because we're moving through, like, corridors. I guess this is my first real attempt at building a space that feels like... Well, all of this is abstract. This is all like a dungeon, right? And like the character is a specific size, yes, and the monsters is a specific size, but like how big is this waterway is like not necessarily like something I have a concrete understanding of. Whereas I think now that we're moving into the cutscene, there's like a supposed to be like a bed in there and like a nightstand table, right? And like there's supposed to be these small little props in that space, and even the doorway itself. And it's starting to bring into question, like, how big is everything? Oh, we had overlapping music there, my bad. So it's really a question of scale. Is there like lighting scenes in the base scene that I didn't like? Because I didn't duplicate the base scene, I duplicated the jailbreak one. Does this one have like some lighting information inside of it? Like some base, like amount of values? Rendering, lighting, drag that into there. There's no baked lighting. Okay, let's go back over to this one. Oh, this ambient color is just gray in comparison. That's probably it. If we make that the same shade as the other one, that lightens things up a lot. Interesting. That's better. It's a lot easier to see. I don't mind the idea of this being a slightly like lower intensity room, but this just feels a little too dark. I mean, that's really dark. Maybe we do just do that. Just one level down. Okay. Somewhere in between. Okay, cool. So the character was lying down here. Proportionally, I don't dislike the space of this world. I think that the character fits into the cell well. I think I can see some props still fitting in here, but it in general is feeling a bit small. And so, well, I mean, even like if I was to talk about, I'm going to need to have a doorway in there. And if we look at the old like walkway, if there was a door in this space, like the character could 100% fit through a one space doorway, but that feels really small. Okay, let's save this as a scenes. As a first try. And then in this one, which has now lost my lighting values, I'm going to try manipulating the world a little bit. So do we have to start over if we want to reshape this? This is the one thing I'm not sure how to do in Pro Builder yet, is how to like get rid of sections. Like there is like this tool section that has like deleting faces, but it always ends up being a little weird. It's probably better for us to start with a new cube and model that again, and then we can just duplicate around if we need to. So let's grab the preview cube. Where's my preview cube? There it is. And then create that. Let's also go into settings for extrude. Let's make it one face at a time that we extrude instead of 4, just because we're working in a smaller space than we have been. Okay. That's working. So then let's bring that down. Let's hide this space. And then instead of going for a 2 wide home, let's go for a 3 wide home and see how that feels. We did a 4 wide cell before. Let's go up to 6. Let's just make it a... Let's try a 6 by 6. I was off by 1. I need to go 1 further. This still leaves us with only a 2 wide gap, so we could do a 3 wide instead of a 2 wide. And this gives us a 6 by 6 space to work with. And then how much space do we want between cells? We could do 3 by doing that, and then if we duplicate... do that, then we extrude this space outwards. How's that feeling? So this isn't quite a doubling. This is just increasing the space of the cell itself. That seems okay. Duplicate, 180, flip. Oh, that's not quite what I want to do. There we go. That's the axis we're looking for. let us explore. What is the null reference we're hitting? When we were setting this up at the beginning of the stream, I forgot to have the null ref check in there. Okay, cool. So if we were in the third cell down, we'd be standing here. Let's grab the reference video from before. So clearly we're still way more zoomed out than we had been in the previous shots. But this proportion feels okay. If we were to add like a bed in here and a nightstand, those would fit okay. I think this could work. Okay, let's maybe build a simple prop or two here just to kind of get some scale pieces in here. So let's add a new object under here, which is going to be called props. It's at 0, 0, good. Let's create a new cube. Let's take this 1x1 cube and stick it under props. So we'll grab all of these cubes and stick that under walls, and we'll rename each of these walls. Copy. Doesn't really matter the names, but I'm being slightly OCD. Okay, so then in props, let's grab this cube and let's design a simple bed shape. So let's say it takes up the last 3 spaces in this scale. Let's change our snap value to 0.1 because we're going to need a lot more fine detail. Let's grab the top of this, bring it down to be about that high. Go to object mode, bring it up to be about 0.5 meters off the ground, it looks like. Go to face select, drag it out to here. Okay, and then we will duplicate that. Go to object, drag that up. Drag the whole thing up. Bring it in a bit, and then grab just this face and pull it down and rotate. Like that. And then object select mode, drag that out to there. Okay, and then let's vertex color all of that. Let's go with something like I don't know. That's probably the closest we're gonna get to brown. That's feeling okay. Huh. Is there like a faster way to select faces, I wonder? That's selecting a loop. Yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. Grow selection isn't working. Select by color doesn't work in this situation. No, I don't think any of these are going to allow me to just select the top faces. Trying to see if there's an easier way than just selecting all of this, but it doesn't look like there is. That's fine. I mean, one thing I could do is just delete the geometry and like re-duplicate it after I've vertex changed it, but I can also just quit whining and just select it. I need the preview cube out of here, please. Thank you. Alright, well that's that space built up. Let's see if we can make a small end table. And then we just need to make some legs. Okay. All right, that's working. Yeah, the props really help a lot. I do kind of wish that we were more zoomed in for this shot. I did like the more zoomed in look, but it makes the world feel like, it makes the character feel like a tiny entity. So this is kind of what we have to work with if we want things to feel proportionally scaled to the size of our character. Okay, let's see if we can get a jail cell in the front, and ideally with a door that we can open and close. So let's use one of these pieces as a base. Let's drag it out. And then drag that up. Create an empty parent, which we will name door. Bars is probably a better representation. And then duplicate. Let's do one every other spot and see how that looks. Okay. And then let's also create one that goes across the top. That looks too tightly packed. Probably not even going to be able to see the character on the other side of that. Yeah, cannot. So I really like the height of our walls being 1.5 meters for moving and exploring dungeon spaces. But for this type of jail cell situation, it just feels like he should be able to grab onto the top and pull his way over. There's essentially supposed to be like an illusion or a suspension of disbelief that the walls continue upwards and that there's like a roof and a ceiling here, but we're just cutting all of that off so you can see inside. But I think that at the current height, it's not selling. You can still see the top of the character's head as you're moving around a little bit here. You're definitely more hidden, so from like a gameplay standpoint, it doesn't feel as nice. But for this particular jail scene, this might be a better look. Yeah. Yeah, I like that more. Okay. kind of wish I had like a brush select for this that I could like drag across and like kind of grab the faces I want like in Blender. But I imagine that would be much harder to do. Okay. Missed one. Yeah, that space feels a lot weightier. And although we are still technically zoomed out, like you can see this whole jail cell more, this is starting to feel a little closer to the way this felt. The next thing I need to do then is move up the bars. We also need to like not... we also need to not have so many. So what would it look like if we got rid of every other bar? That feels better. I want to do something really quick though, which is that I want to grab all of these pieces, duplicate them, move them up, and then I want to delete every other one. Then I want to grab each of these and bring them down, and then have like a thicker section on the top. Like that. Curious how that looks. If anything, I like the shadow more. What if we alternated? So if the... Oh, there's some overlap, actually. That's not good. I want to remove the overlap. So we'll do that by bringing these up. Okay. How does that look with the staggered effect? I think that's okay. Now here's a question, because I do want the character to be able to walk through it. If we were to remove those pieces, can you get through that space? You can. Not too much difficulty walking through that. Okay. Ooh, speaking of difficulty walking, let's generate a nav mesh for this space. Oh, no. Not a big deal, but... Oh, I have to go through and set everything as nav mesh static. So this is walkable. These are non-walkable. And then everything here is static, non-walkable. Okay. And then nav mesh bake. Okay, so although the character can fit through this space, according to our current bake setting, according to our current bake settings, it is not big enough for the character to fit through. If we change the radius of an agent to 0.5, still not big enough. 0.1, still not big enough. Oh, is it a height issue? Max agent height 1 with a radius of 0.5. Can almost walk through there. 0.3. That connects it. Okay. That should allow us to walk a character through, which is all we really care about. The nav mesh can also be a bit weird on this because this will be only a cutscene scene. You won't really play in this area. Let's see if we can build a door. Sweet, okay. And then I need some top and bottom bars I think I want as well. So do we want a bottom bar running across the whole length of this section? Maybe. Just quickly want to see what that looks like. I don't think that looks too bad. Okay. Let's pull that out. And then we'll need to bring each of these up a little bit to make space for this. And then we can bring this back over. Cool. And then that technically belongs in the bar section, and then we'll add 2 to the door. We will come over here, drag this out a little bit, and then match it up. That looks like it should fit in there okay. And then we need to go underneath and then move these both up 0.1. We're going to need to do the same thing on the top too, which might be a little trickier to get the angle to select the face. Oh no, I forgot to control click. Give me... Yeah, I got it. Bring that down. Oh, we need to do that for... maybe we don't do that for those. Hey, Amorphous. Oh, you're right. You're right. I didn't make the announcement in the announcement channel. My bad. Did you not get like a YouTube notification though? Or like a Twitch notification? Either of them? That's fair. That's fair. Cool. Updated Discord. Thank you for that. I should have done that. That's my bad. We are also just, we're kind of trying to recreate the space that we had in the cutscene that we had done a while back. When was this video? This video was December 21st, 2021. So we're almost coming up on a year ago. We're trying to recreate it in the new 3D space. Most of the beginning of the stream, which you missed, was mostly me just silently looking at the space and realizing that it's not lining up quite to the same dimensions. The character is a similar size, but the world just feels too big if I make the walls this size, so we've kind of narrowed in on something that feels a little closer to what we want, I think. Is this reading as a door? I think it's missing the lockbox. Hey, Red Yoshi? You know, honestly, adding a piece down the middle might actually help a lot with making this more readable as a doorway. I was moving this down to create like a little lockbox section, but that crossbeam might be the thing we need. Well, it distinguishes it from the rest of the bars, that's for sure. Okay, let's try that. If we don't like it, we can always change it later. Let's change the face select. Try and... Oh, you know what I could do, which would probably be smart. Let's turn this one off too. Hey, look, now we can select the things. And then we will bring these guys up. Go back to object select. Turn back on this cube. Turn back on the bars. Okay. And now we just need a lock. So we're going to, again, grab one of this cube. And then we are going to bring it out a little bit. And bring it in a little bit. And we're basically just going to thicken one end. Like so. And maybe, just maybe, colored a different color. Huh. That's not a bad idea, Amorphous. Just color tint the door slightly differently as well. I'm curious if we narrow in on a color that's a little bit different from gray, if we can get this to look a lot better if we use the gray tone for this. I mean, this is all gray boxing, so coloring doesn't matter so much, but it would be nice if we got it somewhat close to what we want in the end. This is going to have almost too much of a Zelda feel to it, I think. Yeah, I don't love that. Don't love it. Select my color. What are my options? Interesting. Okay, so then... yeah, these colors are too pastel-y. I should probably come up with a different color palette. Can I add colors to this? I can't. Oh, but I can create different color palettes. Oh, interesting. Oh, and we can add colors here. The color scheming. It's just, I don't want it to have too much of that pastel-y Zelda kind of colors. I would much prefer it have much more of a darker, grittier tone. Although that being said, we are applying some post-processing effects that like tonally shift everything down anyways. But these base colors are very on the like high saturation. I'd much rather have lower saturation colors. These are getting super like muddied down. This is actually really neat. I didn't know that I could do this. Select by color. Interesting. Okay. But if we then go in here and select this, I'm going to add an inspector tab and just pin this one. What if we brought this down in tone? So just like... bring the value down a bit. And then go back in here, select by color, and then do a slightly darker tone here. That's better. Okay, let's do that for now. This just frees us up so that we can use the gray on the bars is really all I'm trying to do here. We need to go to Object Select instead of Face Select for it to apply that. And then we can go to the door and use a slightly different color. All right, let's see how that looks. I don't love it, but it'll probably do for now. I think the geometry is feeling good. I just don't like the color selection, but it's gray boxing. We're literally just putting in nonsense, and then the idea would be that eventually I export this as an FBX, Trixie brings it into Blender, and then we like clean it up in there, and then we have full control over the texture mapping and UVing. Which will be another problem for the future, but for the time being, this should be enough for us to kind of test out the scene and see how things are feeling at this point. fair. I could try a bronzy color for the lockbox. Again, when we bring this into like proper, like real versions, I would love to have like Drixie add like one black pixel in there to represent like like a really dark color to represent the actual like key lock. Which means based on the fact this is only like 4 or 5 pixels wide, I might actually want to make it a little bit bigger too. Yeah. Again, we're not so much like we want to get the when gray boxing, we're more concerned about the shape of things, because the geometry is what I'm going to be handing off to be like, okay, here everything has to be exactly these dimensions, but you can make it look however you want. So it's really just making sure that we've got everything kind of boxed in correctly, thus gray boxing. But the colors are more just right now only for me and my own sanity. I like things to look at least close. It also helps with like, I didn't notice that this needed to be a little bigger until we had the proper colors in there. Yeah. Okay. We could also sample some of like, here's an idea. What if we go to the walls that, like I have a couple sample pieces that Trixie gave me. Namely this wall piece. This is more for the sewer, but what if we sampled that for color? I'm gonna do it off camera, but make a new one. Again, because we have like a post-processing effect, this may not work exactly how I want, but select by color. Select by color. Okay, so that's better, but now our lighting is a little too dark. Yeah. So it's these colors are meant to be really saturated, so their value is really low, but we need to bring them back down again. Or the tone map shader effect that we're having is like also bringing it down. So we need to bring it up so that the engine can bring it back down for us. So let's try this with a little bit more saturation, or value, I guess, technically. Yeah, that's better. The lighting is still a little dark, but this gives us room to have like point lights and stuff, and I could always change the intensity on the actual directional light instead of increasing the intensity of kind of the ambient lighting. It'll make shadows pop a little bit more. The last question is the floor, which I do also have a test object for that as well, so let's see if we can get a color off of that. It looks like it's somewhat similar to the floor, or to the walls. It's a different shade of green. That's better. I'm glad I didn't just leave it. Again, this is sampling and grabbing colors from the actual textures that like Drixie did, and Drixie's much better at picking colors than I am, so that makes sense. All we really had to do was tweak the value up. Let's go into our lighting, which is here, and can we also increase the intensity a little bit? What does that do? Yeah, that brightens it a little bit. Maybe we just go to an intensity of 1 for this scene? It's hard to say. What is the exact color values? Let's save our scene, and let's switch over to We can select asset here. Let's switch over to gray box B. Because I did really like the way that the gray box B was looking. And I think it might just be pumping up the colors. This is just using 250. Is this just pure white here? What I should have done, and I could possibly still do this, is I duplicated the old jailbreak 2D scene. I should have duplicated Gray Box B because I knew that the lighting in that was what I wanted. Okay, so then we also need to color that over there, but that can come at a later point. I haven't checked. How are we doing on, like, everything's still okay on, like, YouTube, Twitch? Yeah, we're good. We're good. Alright. So... just go to half steps. It's easier for me to get the exact dimensions I want. Pull that down, pop that out. Okay. And then for, let's see, face select. These faces we want the floor color. Oh. Okay, that's fine. Is there actually, is it not fine? Is there overlapping objects here? There is overlapping objects. That's not what I wanted to do. I misselected something there when I was doing that. Again, it's gray box, it's fine. They're gonna flicker though? It's not fine. Shoot. Okay. Let's undo... I see. Is that the same over here? No, this piece is just specifically different. Alright. I don't know what's up with that piece. Let us turn it off, and then we'll just grab this guy, duplicate, and then build this again. Look at that. Done. Delete the old one. Okay, solved. Back to what we were doing, which was coloring in the rest of this for the time being with these colors. Top color is that one. That one. And then the walls. Now we gotta just grab all the back pieces here. We'll start from this side and work our way over. That way the little red handle isn't in our way as we're trying to click on things. Bring that out to the edge. Same thing here. Bring that out to the edge. It almost looks like this piece got pulled out a little bit somehow. How did I mess that up? How did... Again, this doesn't matter because it's just gray box and we're going to build over top of it with proper geometry later, but like I'm just more annoyed than anything. Okay. That looks mostly fixed. I don't think the camera should see over here, but we're just gonna... Bloop. Sorry, I didn't see your question until now, Amorphous. How did you tell they'd flicker? You know because they're overlapping, or was there more to it? No, yeah, just because they're overlapping. When we run the game, if they had the same color, it might not be as noticeable, but it's a concern, and I just don't want to deal with it, so I'm just trying to clean up the geometry as I go. While I'm in like the mindset, like honestly, most of game development is about like being in the right mindset to do things. It often feels like, in general, you can be like a little bit lost when you switch gears. So like if I go into like what we're about to probably tackle now that all the geometry is looking about right, probably going to switch into actually doing the like cutscene logic here in a minute. And then if I was to come back to working with the geo again, there's a cost to like mentally going from working on the geo to working on the code and then back to the geo. It like takes a bit of time to kind of switch the mindset around. Okay, so that's all looking good. Let's come into here, and we have, this is essentially the cell bars, and this is the ideally, I wouldn't want this geometry to be the parent of the door itself, but it is convenient in that it allows us to like rotate this thing, and it rotates around the pivot of this object. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave that for the time being. If we duplicate all of this, and then we create a new empty parent, which we shall name props, and then we rename this one to cell props, and then we delete this one and duplicate it here, we might be able to get away with just being awesome. Okay. My brain was like, something isn't right here. It took me a second to see it, though. Okay. So that's good. Now we can do the same thing and duplicate, but this time we're going to flip around 180 on the Y, and then we can bring this over. That looks about right. That should be butt up against the back of the wall, and it is. Okay, that's all good. And that should be fine. Ideally, each of these cells should be in their own, like, should be slightly different. Honestly, I shouldn't be looking at the bars to line this up. I should be looking up at the back of the bed, because this thing should be perfectly in the 90-degree here, and that's much easier to see if that's correct or not. Okay. So like I would want to add like maybe a bucket to one and not to another, and one has a little candle on it and one doesn't. Like, how much of that you'll be able to see in pixel, it's debatable, but like they should feel different. Oh, interesting. The bed and the table completely disappear on the opposite side. That makes sense. Okay. So then we'll come into, probably we'll delete these. I shouldn't have copied these until I had validated it looked good on the left. But let's grab this one. Let's rotate this 180. And then we will move the bed to the opposite side, so you at least see it. And same thing with the table. We will just shift the table over one. And I guess we might have to move it out one, actually. So maybe we move it to this corner instead. Let's try that. Because the character is pinned in the cell right now, I could just move him, but I don't feel like it. We're just gonna assume that that looks fine. It's fine. Cool. Yeah, and now we can start playing with stuff a little bit. Like we could have, no, I don't need to. I was thinking like I could try and break this rope piece, or I guess we could just remove it. Just trying to vary things. So like if things are too consistent to the eye, it can look like really off. This looks weird. Let's bring Ward out of the cell. It's going to make this a lot easier. Where is my spawn point? So that's just a little bit of information. You don't see that at all. Interesting. Oh, right, because these are too high. I was thinking about this being one high, but basically for every tile up we go, 2 tiles are hidden, which is why I don't really love this wall height from normal gameplay, but for this cutscene it really does feel right. So we could do that. That should give you more of it. And then here... Smashing the table is probably the right call to add more variety. What does a smashed table look like? Oh, it's honestly probably easier. Yeah, I like that. Again, we can, like, it's about trying to inspire a feel. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect in any ways. It's really just like, I want to tell a story and give inspiration so that when, like, we come to, like, modeling this at a later point, there's, like, because we can build, like, fully smashed tables and things a little bit more later. But for the time being, we can, like, this is just about creating things that tell a bit of a story, and we can build the real versions and the final models later with, like, more detail. Somehow I didn't notice how far over that was. This looks really good. This I like, it tells a bit of a story. This is fine. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm liking it. Better. The only thing I don't like is how samey these two cells feel. I want them to feel similar. In fact, I might even want to have an NPC sleeping on this bed during the cutscene. But I don't want them to feel identical. Yeah, that's better. Okay. It's just about reducing that uniformity. And I think I've nailed that. Again, we can reinvent and build better. We have the technology, just not here. Okay, so let's put Ward somewhere in this area. Get him back in like a 0.5 offset, and then we'll set our 0.5. Okay, and then I think this is a good enough environment for us to probably start trying to get the cutscene working again. We're not getting any shimmering pixels or anything either, right? No, it doesn't. Does not look like it. Oh, a little bit. Okay, that's fine. Something I'll need to keep in mind in the future. Oh, yeah. That's a shame. You can see some pixels vanishing and reappearing. That's just the size of the shape of the objects is like causing some problems. I'm still not 100% sure how to solve that. That's a deeper rendering question, which will take eons. Yeah, you can see some of the pixels shifting on the bars as we move back and forth. Okay, cool. Let's see if we can get the cutscene up and running. So, how do we do that? So we've got the world geo mostly in a state where I feel like it's, although not exactly identical to the old cutscene, it at least feels close enough for us to tell the story. So Morph says, well, it looks like time to build your own engine. Too many issues here. Joking, not joking. Like, in some regards, Unity has its own universal render scriptable pipeline thing, and you can kind of write your own render pipeline for it. That may be a thing I have to do if I really want to get rid of some of the pixel shimmying. I'm not a proficient render engineer, but I'm always gathering skills, so maybe that's the next thing I work on in a year or two. But I want to get the game working. We can worry about the pixels shifting slightly when the game is more of a full flush game. It's not functional at this point. I want to get to the point where we have this cutscene ends, we start in the dungeon, we progress through the dungeon, get into some battles, we gain some level ups on our skills, we go into the menus, we upgrade our skill points, we continue battling through, get another couple cutscenes, and then eventually a boss battle. If I can get to that, there's still a bunch more things I need to do before I care about rendering. So I need to stop worrying about pixel shifting. I was just more curious to see if it was going to happen with these new geometry. It doesn't really happen with walls, but when we get into things that are like not exactly 1 meter by 1 meter, it does become slightly more of a problem. I think it's just a rounding issue on the camera, but again, we'll deal with it later. Okay, so I don't know about fascinating. I think it might be really boring to dive into some of the more rendering stuff. But never know. I've been wrong about what is interesting and not interesting to you guys in general. You folks. Chat over the years. This is the thing that triggers the cutscene. Looks super jank. Yeah, it's just grabbing the cutscene of choice. How is this working in that, like, it looks like it's expecting me to be standing within some sort of distance of something? If the player object is close enough to the temp trigger. So where is the temp trigger? Here. I'm going to guess that this used to line up perfectly with the character. So we're going to put this on top of the character spawn. And that might trigger the cutscene. Let's see. It's going to be completely broken because it's still using all the waypoints from... it's still using all the waypoints from... 2D space. Okay. Okay, so that's functioning. That's actually a little bit more than I was expecting. So what's happening? What is this? So this is the jailbreak sequence. So that's going to be in here somewhere. That's going to be this massive thing that's super laggy, and I need to optimize at some point. All right, so let's get rid of the Pro Builder stuff so that we can see more of this window. In fact, we might want to just make this the whole screen for the time being. So camera priority, so we're setting the camera priority of jail cell camera to 1. Which camera is that? This is camera pan 1. I'm not actually seeing that. Okay, let's come back into... Where did jailbreak go? Here. Let's pin this tab, and let's add a new inspector, which will be kind of for whatever we have clicked at the moment. Let's go back to scene view. And we are looking for our cameras. This camera does not have an entity attached to it. And this camera is camera pan 1, which is probably used in here somewhere. I am not seeing a camera pan 1. Okay, one thing I need to do is my entity system I love. I think it's fantastic. But sometimes tracking down entities can be somewhat difficult. I really want to build myself a tool that essentially allows me to open up... I don't need that anymore. To open up like a window and just say, hey, I'm looking for an entity by this name. And then have it just like find it. Aha, here are the cameras. This is jailbreak camera 1. Okay. That camera is a virtual camera that has no follow target, and it does not look to be pointing at anything. Why am I not seeing the gizmos? There we go. Aha, if we turn back on the grid. Okay, so jailbreak camera 1, or jailbreak cell camera, is pointing at where the cells were. So this camera needs to line up with the character now. Okay. So let's hit play. Neat. I didn't think that would actually work. So that's working. So then if we turn that off and we go into here and we click on the 3D player controller, grab this camera's transform, which should be, if we were to look at it, it should be pointing at the character. It is. The blue lines are kind of hard to see here, but its box is pointing down towards the character. So if we copy this and then stop and then go to the jailbreak camera and paste values, we should now be looking at the geometry. Oh. We need to set the orthographic size. Goodness, what is that number? There's a very specific number we need for this. The virtual camera uses this orthographic size because that reduces the pixel shifting we were talking about as much as I possibly can with just, tweaking camera settings. So we change that to be of that size. Honestly, all of these cameras should be that orthographic size, I think. Okay, so that's pointing at the character, but it's like slightly off. I would expect it to be looking... let's see, if we go to edit, lock view to selected, and then go to orthographic. Yeah, it doesn't quite give me the dimensions I would be expecting. So if we come back into here, copy, paste values, that should be the same. Yeah, other than the fact that this one's trying to focus on the character, they should have close to identical values. Oh, with one primary exception. This thing has a frame look at, so it's actually like not directly pointed at the character. If we wanted to look directly at the character, we'd have to tweak it. Okay. Is there a way for me to just go game scene view, zoom out, and then just tweak the camera? Can we go to local space like that and then just line up the shot we want? I know that based off of a bunch of math things, that I want all of my stuff rounded to the nearest 8. So I'm timesing everything by 8. Oh, I should be timesing everything by 8 and then removing any integers and then dividing by 8. Times 8. Remove any floating points, divide by 8. Times 8. Remove any floating points, divide by 8. Okay, that should give us something that's pixel correct. Okay. Good. Less good. So the character isn't quite, like, his eye is messed up. Some of this pixel is distorted. We need to write a new script, I think. So on the... If we go to... So, okay, so basically the way this works is if we look at the character, I've done a bunch of weird math tricks to make this work, and most of this was trial and error, and may not be the right way to do things, but it works for me. When we move, we actually move this player movement, and then this player movement, the sprite render actually checks where the player movement is, and then tries to position as close as possible to it by rounding its position. So in here, it does... Not here. The render updater, this thing, will update the position, but it essentially just rounds to the pixels per unit, which I have set to 8, and all the round is doing is timesing it, rounding to the nearest int, and then dividing that vector by 8. I think I need to do the same thing. Okay, well, technically it's these functions, but regardless, it's doing some pixel snapping. I need to do the same thing on the camera. And the reason this works for when we're walking around normally is this camera targets this object, and because this object can only ever move to a position that is perfectly aligned and snapped, then the camera only ever looks at the object that is perfectly aligned and snapped. So I think I need to just write a new script that does the same thing that we're doing here, but directly to the camera. Just to make sure that we can move this camera wherever we want in the scene, but it always just gets realigned. And we'll see if that works. If it doesn't, there's more problems. And if there's more problems, we'll tackle them as they come. Okay, so let's duplicate this thing, which is updating the player position. And then let's rename this to camera pixel aligner. That sounds like a great name for a class. Open that up, rename. Instead of updating the player position, okay, what is this doing? It's grabbing my current position. This is, I copied the wrong one. I need a 3D variant. I need to go back through the project and then like clean up. I still have a lot of the old 2D variants of stuff, and we've moved past that. And I need to go through and get rid of all the old ones. Okay, so this thing is going to grab the player position. Instead, I want to grab my own transform, and I want to round it. We shouldn't need any of this. All of this is dead code that I was using for testing that I never cleaned up. Doesn't look like we're using this pixel function, so we're just using round and pixel snapping. We don't need this, and we don't need the increment. That was again for debugging. The only thing we care about is the pixels per unit, which honestly should be a constant at this point. I know what that value is, but we'll leave it because maybe for cutscenes we might want to zoom in or out, and that might require changing the pixel density. Okay, so now jailbreak camera, add new script, camera pixel aligner, pixels per unit 8. If we run now, the character shouldn't look squashed. If he does, I don't know. He no longer looks squashed. Fantastic. Okay, and this is also not looking broken. Some of it looks a little bit off. Thank you for the follow. First time chatter. Oh, unlockable characters also redeemed a hydration at some point, and I missed it. Hello to you. We should also toggle off the grid and the props, and then I'm gonna drink some water. Right, hydration complete. Manage rewards. Mark complete. What do we do in here? Why is this off in space? That's the next question we need to ask. Oh, I see. Some of the pixel squashing was also because we had it brought down into here, and it was doing a weird scale as well. So if we bring this to a 1 scale, it's fine. But it should be aligned over the character's head, and it's not. But why? But why? Am I making a game like a Facebook game? I am not. I am not. I am making something like an old PlayStation 1 or DS era JRPG. Or at least that's the hope. We'll see if it comes off feeling that way. So why does the alignment fail? Let's take a look at the sequence. So it should be doing ward. It should be playing some ward animations. Those I don't think are happening. Which is interesting. Is that because ward was... Oh, Oh, this is before we had a proper player. We don't see it because all the textures are missing, but there's an old ward object and an old follow object, and we are manually using those to move around? Oh no. Okay, so we need to add a step in here, which this thing can't really handle more steps, but here we go. Cutscene, set player control step. We're going to drag this to the top. It's so laggy. I really should rebuild this to not be a... Oh, I can scroll wheel. Okay, that helps. I should rebuild this to not be a... This doesn't need a list of entities anymore. Sorry. I should rebuild this whole thing to be like an actual node editor instead of a long list, because it's just getting so slow. Oh. 6 Tiger. Thank you for the Prime. Appreciate that. Stopping in and dropping off the Prime immediately. It's very kind. It's very, very kind. I was trying to... Yeah. So I have this node editor for like my scene transitions so that we switch between all our UI stuff that we built. I feel like I need to rebuild this to be a node editor as well, because this is just getting like so cranky with all the steps that we have. When we only have a couple steps, like when we're doing like scene transitions and stuff, it's not too bad. It's pretty quick, but when we get like a lot in here, it gets really slow. And I think the dialogue generation stuff is also part of that. Okay. Regardless, we're going to use what we got. So we may rebuild this tool at a later point. This should turn off the player control though. And then this is going to try to find the entity ward. But the entity ward is not what we need to find. What we're finding is the player. Maybe it's not wrong to have a ward object. Like, we're loading up the player here, but this is a cutscene in which we're probably never going to let the player move around and have control for this cutscene. So we probably could just load up like a simple version of ward. Like, this has another camera in it that we're never going to use for this. This also resolves around a problem, or is revolving or starting to revolve around a problem I have with the combat too, because when we go into combat right now, let's save. We'll notice that the game loads up with no characters loaded. And that's because these used to be also static images of the character, but at some point I'm going to need to load in full animation versions of the characters, similar to Ward, which is going to need to potentially have overlapping music is annoying. Thank you, Amorphous, for the 42 months. I need the characters to load up here with full animation sets. Okay, so processing. My brain is whirling. I need the characters to load up here with full animation sets because they're going to need to potentially attack, celebrate, any kind of animation, and that should probably be the same character that we load up into the main game. So there's kind of this issue where, and honestly, Ward isn't even the main character in our story. In a lot of ways, Jeez, Amorphous. Appreciate that. As always. I'm gonna do a little hype. Thank you for the gifted sub. Also, hi Crack Top. I see you lurking now. You have been revealed. I need to build some sort of universal system to load a specific character. And loading a specific character is not the same thing as loading into the game. Although maybe the player should use the same system. Yeah. Okay, so I need a way of loading up a character that is a fully functional sprite with its animation sets that I can trigger, activate, do stuff with. That loads into a player container. When we go into the game, we normally load up this 3D player container, and that player container has like the camera inside of it and some other state logic essentially assigned to it. But I think this player character shouldn't be dungeon specific or even like cutscene specific. It should be like a generic object that I can load anywhere, so that we have the ability to just be like, hey, I need a thing. It probably still needs to be the same movement object and sprite dependency setup because we may want to move that character in a cutscene, or even in battle. Although battle, we probably want to do a sequence movement, less of a normal player controller movement, but what is the sprite render? Like, what makes up Ward that walks around right now? Like, this character that's moving, what is this? This is a sprite renderer with a Ward animation and some other stuff. Is it really just Ward animation, though, that is the heart of it? Like, if we switch this to the Fala set, it just becomes Fala. So really, the player container doesn't care who's in the animator set. And we can call animations and most characters all... like, right now, one requirement I have for Drixie is that all the characters have the same animation set. So we should be good. I don't think the virtual camera is supposed to be in the player. And I think I need to stop thinking about this 3D object prefab, this 3D player prefab, as the character. And I need to start thinking about it as just a player container object. So if we come into here, I think this virtual camera should actually just be a part of the sewer scene. And each dungeon should have its own virtual camera. It will need access to the player sprite, but that has no entity on it. But we can add an entity and we can set up something that will track and find that. Okay, let's battle that a different day. Let's see if we can figure out how to spawn a character of different types. So this player state has an initialize. which is doing some player input stuff. And this comes in from the dungeon when we generate it. What if instead, background music, what if instead we give it a character ID, which is the character we wish to spawn. And then this will need a reference to a public animator. And then we will need to do... We're going to have to do an addressable load. This means the character isn't going to appear for a few seconds. Okay, one step at a time. One step at a time. Where is an example of loading something? Here, addressable instantiation. Okay. We're going to make this functional. I don't know if I love the way that I'm going with this, but we can always rebuild it later. The result of this should be... I'm going to want to load one of these. So these are going to need to be addressables. So this is going to be Fala animator. This is going to be Giju animator. And this is going to be Ward animator. Okay. This Ward animator looks to be of type animator controller. So we're going to load we'll get the name later. For now, we need to just do as animator controller. None of these variables look correct. If we come back into here, documentation, please. Script documentation, please. I don't know what that means. Anime controller inherits from runtime animator controller. Okay, got it. So I should then be able to do treat the thing I load up as a runtime animator controller, and then we should be able to do animator dot controller, runtime animator controller, is equal to the one that we just loaded. Show me other examples where I've done stuff. It's not helpful. That's not helpful. That's the one we're trying to modify. It looks like most of the time we do result.get component. How do we convert the object we get back when we instantiate to something that we can actually set? How and why and why and how? Trying to find, because I've worked with this before, I'm just trying to find an example of where I've taken this game object and converted it to something that we can actually use. And I am not finding an example of that. Like somewhere in this code base of 2.5 years, there has to be an example where we have loaded up a thing we define the type. We define the type when we do it. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. Load asset async, not instantiate async. Perfect. And now the result is an animation. Should be a runtime controller. And now we can just set this here. Got it. That should work. So now if we give in a character ID here, which we will default to Ward. Well, actually for testing purposes, let's default it to Fala and see if it loads up with Fala instead of Ward now. It will probably be Ward for half a second. As it like has to do the extra load step, but I can figure out a way to resolve that later. Probably do the load first before we show the character. It didn't work. Because we never set the animator, that makes sense. I'm moving a little bit too quickly, but I'm excited because I think I have a solution that's going to fix several problems at the same time, and those are my favorite solutions. Where is the animator? It is here. Okay, so if we come up to this one, my favorite solutions are the ones that fix everything simultaneously. Yep, so it was Ward for half a second, then it switched to Fala. That works. Okay, so now, going back to the cutscene, we need to write another new script, but let's go back to the cutscene first. Hydration, okay, fair. Yeah, no, listen, I'm talking a lot and I'm moving quick. You're right, you're right. When you're right, chat. I appreciate it. now I gotta stretch too? You guys ganging up on me. Alright. Okay, so this is the ward object. We need to make a new script. So let's put this under... here. This is specifically dungeon scripts, though. This is UI scripts. Stick it under common. Okay. Load character. Enter. That's probably a fine name. So what does load character do? So load character will need to have a... I wish I had a standing desk sometimes. Kind of want to try one before I like invest a ton of money. Okay. Okay, that was helpful. Stretching was a good idea. I had been sitting for too long. Mark complete. Okay. So we need a animator ID, which by default will be ward animator. We're gonna put this in a wake for now, but... And then who loads the player right now? The player is loaded by the dungeon state system, so we can grab this chunk of code for loading the player. I think I'm ready to change up the tunes, the background music. So this was Frigid Pillar. What is Filtered Dreams like? Oh, I like Filtered Dreams. Okay, so... It's a little slow, though, and I'm feeling hyped. I'm feeling hyped. Do I want to go RPG battle music, though? Oh, it's too intense. Like, listen to this. I mean, that's cool, but... Dun, 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 dun. No. Playful banter will work. I don't know if this... I went and bought the rest of Pan Man's music a while ago. I don't know if I've transferred all of that audio over to this workspace. Yeah, we only have the battle music, dungeon music, and the RPG. I need to transfer the town music and the cutscene music. Honestly, should start going through some more of the cutscene. I haven't listened to all of those yet. There might be a good one in for this one. How's the audio levels on this? This feels a little louder. I'm gonna just go to blinded. We had blinded on a bunch yesterday, and I know blinded is pretty nice in the background. We'll go with that one. Okay, enough fussing. Now I have created a new script. I need the prefab ID, which is 3D player thingamabobber, and then that spawns that, and then it needs a position to give it. For the time being, let's go with transform brain. Thank you. Let's just set it to its position. We don't need to save this value, so we can just like make a temp variable for it. It's not coming in from battle because that'll cause it to be invincible. And then we need to give it a animator ID, which is this value. Okay, so this should load the characters on awake. These are all the waypoints. Okay. So then let's delete all of... I don't think we need the ward object at all anymore. So we're going to just get rid of... Well, we might need it for reference, but we're going to create a new one. Let's go over here. And this spawn point will be now the load character. And that'll be the ward animator. And then we will create another one. And this one will be the Fala animator. And this one needs to come down over this way. Fala starts somewhere in this space, slightly off camera. Okay. That may not be off camera anymore. We might need to pull it back a little further. And then... Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? We have these characters now probably loading. Let's test that. I think we need to give these characters IDs. Yeah, you can see follow over there. Whoa. Oh, that's the other character that loaded. That's what happened there. There's a default character. So I guess that's from here. And that's because we're initializing the dungeon? Do we need to initialize the dungeon? We're not tracking anything. And it looks like if we remove the spawn entity, it won't initialize. I don't know if this is the permanent solution, but... Okay. So the next problem is these are trying to find entity ward. So we need to give these objects IDs. Let's take a quick look here, but is that what was happening on this? Yeah, ward was the entity on the sprite renderer. So when we load in, we need to find the sprite renderer object, which should be the same one as the animator, and add an entity and give it an appropriate name. So this is load ward. This is load Fala. Entity name, entity ID to give. We can just call it entity ID, and we'll give that ward. And then here, where we're doing the initialization, we're going to create an entity component on the animator. Ooh, actually, question, does it already have an entity component on that level by default in the prefab? It does. It has the entity ID player sprite. Okay. So what we can do then instead is we can get component entity off the animator, and then we can take that entity and we can do a initialize forced. And we can first, before doing that, do entity dot ID is equal to entity ID, and that'll cause it to retrigger all the stuff we want it to retrigger. And that should have set everything up correctly. So we will load a player character. We will then initialize it with a animator, and then we will set it to have the correct entity ID that our cutscene wants, basically. Okay. I think there's more steps here, or more refinement. Like, I think what should probably actually be happening is we should be initializing the player state machine with the entity ID, and this thing should probably be going through and saying, hey, this is a ward state machine, and like going through all of the possible entities and creating the right names for them. And then coming up with like a naming convention, and then it might be a matter of adapting our current cutscene to adjust to that new entity naming convention. But for now, let's get it operational, and then I can like clean up the way that the entity management stuff is handled. Okay, so this should be the ward character now. Animator does not have animator component, so it is still failing to find what it is expecting. And that's probably because ward still exists in the scene, and it's finding that one instead. So now we do need to delete ward and Fala. We still have the old versions and the old cutscenes if we really need to reference them. Okay. So that's not right. Still. Oh, is that because we didn't update this one to have the correct entity ID? Is follow the entity ID that we are expecting? It is. Ooh, see, we are expecting other ones, though. There's a ward movement one. Let's bring back those things we deleted. Yeah, which should be on here. Okay, are there any other entities that we are unaware of? So there's one here. There isn't any there. There's the ward sprite renderer one. Okay, so there's another one for movement. Okay, so for now we're gonna force it. as I was just saying a second ago, I think that there's probably a more advanced or cleanup step that needs to be done here. But we're going to go with this. Movement entity. Again, I'm going to rip all this out after stream probably. And we're going to refactor all of this. But for now, we'll do this. And the convention looked to be this. Sweet. Okay, okay. I'm going to bring the volume of this one down a little bit. Okay, so ward movement, and there's a follow movement as well. So then we're going to come into these two. That's ward movement. This needs to be follow and follow movement. Okay, save those, delete these old ones so that we don't grab the wrong ones. Hit play. Interesting. Ward got squished. Unexpected. He is animating, and the dialogue box is appearing over his head correctly, though. Oh, or is it? Okay. And then we hit an exception on null reference. Oh, we got 2 null references. Because the entity manager wasn't even created yet. Okay. This should work. Good. That should solve that part of it. What was the other null reference? It failed to find an entity of a specific name. Which entity? Don't know. Looks to be in move 2. Okay. So our very first move 2 failed, which makes sense. I haven't actually rewritten the move logic. Follow entity entry waypoint. Okay. That is here. Okay. Okay, let's get movement up and running again. So the problem with movement, let's take a look at that script, is that it doesn't operate it hasn't been set up to operate in 3D space. So this is still working off the old 2D logic. So what is this doing internally? It is doing cutscene movement, set cutscene nav target, move to lock animations. Okay. and that is going into the agent. So there is a cutscene movement script that is doing some stuff. We need to rewrite that into a gameplay state. So when we come into my character should be in the cutscene state already. I just want to check to see if that's true. And then if they aren't, then we'll fix that. But if they are, player state, entity, cutscene state. They're in the cutscene state currently. Being in the cutscene state, I just need to add the cutscene movement logic to that. The nav mesh agent should already be handled by the player state machine. It is not, so we'll need to add it. Nav mesh agent. It doesn't know what that is because it doesn't exist. Or wait, no. Here, I was in the wrong spot. Naming the variable. There we go. And then let's pin this up here, and then let's also pin the cutscene movement because we're going to need to go back and forth between them a bunch. We're going to need to grab the agent. That is something I want to manually set, I think. And then we're going to set these values on default entry on a init. We're going to do update rotation, update up to axis. All of these are going to be set to false. Okay, then when we set nav target, I think this function gets moved to the state machine. This update goes into the specific state. Okay, so then we're going to come down here. We're going to add this function. It's going to complain because it doesn't know what target is. It's fine. It's going to complain because it doesn't know what a lot of things are. We're going to rename that to move to target. It's clearer. IsNav doesn't matter because we're going to use states, so we don't have to do that logic. We are enabling the agent and setting the nav target. Lock animations. What is lock animations doing? Interesting. Thanks for stopping in, Amorphous. It is really all coming together. The UI, the combat, the dungeons, the cutscenes were real close. Thank you for the last hydrate on the way out the door. I appreciate you. Thanks for stopping in and chatting. It's been a lot of fun today. I'm probably going to need to wrap up soon myself, honestly. Oh, wow. How long have we been streaming? 3 hours? I mean, it's not as surprising as yesterday when I looked up and it was 4, but still. Let's finish this. Let's finish the cutscene movement system, and then I'll probably call it a stream, and then clean a lot of this off camera, I think. But let's get it functional. So, I don't know what this lock anim is doing. We're going to need this function as well, though, I think. Let's grab that. For now, we'll bring lock anim over, and we will determine if we want it or not want it later. I imagine it's like a slide, so instead of like properly moving, it like just slides them. Don't know why we need a start position either. Nav is not a thing anymore. And then this functionality will go inside of our cutscene state. We can freely update. We might actually want another state, honestly. Owner dot. What was that function doing? That was just doing set direction. ISO owner dot ISO renderer, character renderer, sought set render direction. Isometric character renderer. Isometric character renderer. It should have... Oh, set direction, not set ISO direction. Okay. Cool. There is another state here. Huh. Yeah. Yeah, there is. Okay. So this movement system, once we get close enough, we want to stop navigation. I.e., we want to have the agent no longer trying to move to the space. We've gotten close enough. I think all of this should be handled on state changes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how do we do this? We're going to make a new state, which is going to handle when we're moving. I think we're at a point also where I can just delete grid and prop. If we need them, we still have a backup of the scene in the other space. Here. Delete or copy this, and then player cutscene move state. Which is a state we're in when we're moving. Okay, and then in here, if we reach the remaining distance, we set this to 0 and we... Stop. Okay. Else if not locked, we update the set direction to the agent's velocity. We need to make this value public. so we have access to it. It shouldn't be available all the time though, so I think we can hide an inspector. Okay. Start position is set but never used. Move to target is set but never used. Interesting. Okay. Okay, next steps. I'm going to go into here. On enter, I think this is where we should actually do some of this logic. So when we enter into movement, we will enable the nav mesh agent and set its destination. Its destination should be owner dot, and then now we have to make this public so we can access it. Again, shouldn't always be available though, so we'll set this to hide an inspector, like so. And then move to target should be available over here. Okay, and then we also want to override the exit call, and on exit call we're going to want to do the stop logic. So in here, where's that stop logic? This. We want to grab all of this, and we want to do this when we exit the state. So if we're leaving the state, we no longer want the nav agent to be enabled. We want to reset its path, and we want to set it to stopped. Okay, that makes sense. So then here, instead of calling stop, what we're actually doing is changing states when we're close enough, and we're changing our state back to the cutscene state. Player cutscene state. I don't think we can exit this state any other way, so until we get there, we don't leave. Cool. If we somehow can't get there through navigation, then I have messed up a cutscene, and that's sad. Maybe we find a more permanent way to solve that later, but for now, we're going to leave that. Now here, I don't think I do this anywhere else, but I should be able to technically do a change state here when we call set nav mode. And the only problem would be if we're not actually in the cutscene state. Is this start position used anywhere? It is not. So that's probably old deg code that we don't need to copy over. Was it used anywhere here? No. They were also dead code at this point. Okay, that should be operational. The problem that we're going to run into now is that when we tell our characters to move, we're sending that to follow movement and to ward movement. But now we want to be sending that to the player state machine. So let's take a look at the step real quick. Set player movement state inside of here. This is going to be trying to get component cutscene movement. Instead, we're going to want to try and get component player state. And we're going to want to grab the player state and set these values. This means that we need to change up our cutscene sequence to point at the new entity, though. Or we rename our player state entity name to this, which is probably easier and faster at this point. So if we go back into load, let's do... Does the player state machine have a reference to its own entity currently. It does not. I might want to clean that up later, but for now we'll just do this. Player state machine entity. Okay. And that's going to be getting the component off the player container, and then we're going to init true forcefully if the entity manager is not equal to null. We also want to set this to the same value as the movement entity. That's going to cause some problems. Maybe we don't set the movement entity one for now. Because the reason we were setting that was because that's where the script used to be. But now this kind of replaces it. Let's see if that's functional. This might have characters moving, just like that. We may have converted things over to work with the new system. Well, we have errors, so nope. Right, we don't need any of this inside of the cutscene anymore. The cutscene is basically just a holding point waiting for the pause gameplay to end, and then we go back to whatever we were doing before. Ooh, this breaks now. So this transitions to the previous state we were in, but if we now leave the cutscene state to go into the movement state when we leave the paused gameplay, we're actually not going to go back into the state we think we are going to go into. Okay, so then I think what we do is we ignore that, and I will fix it off camera, because I think I do need to stop relatively quickly. So I just want to see if we can get the movement part. But I will resolve that later. It failed on the animation part now. It didn't set the player state correctly. None of my entities are set up correctly. Oh, it broke because of this on the state machine setup. Okay. So inside of the 3D player, we need to actually remember to point the nav mesh agent here. Wrote the code, but we still have to connect the references. Things are swimmy right now. Yeah, he gets squished. Gonna have to figure that out. Okay, we're still getting a null reference when we go to move. Interesting. So that's implying that it can't find the movement. This one's labeled correctly, but this one still isn't labeled correctly. Interesting. Somehow we are getting into here with a fail state. because we didn't remove this after we moved it down into the safety check, into the if statement. Okay. So we're going to run this again. First step is just validating that the characters actually have the correct names. Okay, these now have the correct states on them. Last thing I just realized we never actually did was we never actually set up the waypoints. These waypoints are set up for the old 2D space still. So Fala entry should in fact be in front of the jail cell. 0, 0 should be about there. Ward entry I believe should be about there. And we might want to move ward back a bit. Fala entry 2. I believe is there. Walk towards bars. This is another walk towards bars. I might have to rewatch the cutscene to try and figure out what the intent of some of these waypoints is. It doesn't really matter that much. Let's try that, and then Fala exit. And ward exit. Okay, those should be on the nav mesh and accessible as points to actually move to. So if we've set everything up correctly, which camera are we looking through right now? Yeah, okay. I'm still concerned about why he's squashed, but let's see if we can get walking working at the very least. Also, his alignment is slightly off. She didn't move. It didn't fail. There's no null references. There just wasn't any movement. Okay. What state are the characters in? They are in a cutscene movement state. Interesting. If we click on the nav, the nav agent isn't turned on. Oh, do we have to actually call update or something? Owner update movement. What is this doing? This is actually updating the movement controller with our direction. Do we have to do something similar for the actual... We didn't need to do that here, though, did we? Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. The direction... I had similar problems over here, I feel like. This value. difference in naming is also annoying. I might need to clean that up too. Okay. Okay. She started moving. Yeah, everything's super swimmy with these cameras. Yeah, something's super wrong with the actual pixel stuff, but that's a super nitty-gritty thing that I'll have to debug. Should be solvable though. They should have been moving by now. Huh. But why? Hasn't entered into a cutscene movement state. Interesting. This should be waiting for the character to finish moving, but they hadn't moved at all. So something is seriously busted. Well, that's part of it. This system also needs to be reworked. We have done code like this before. We need to do current state, and then where did we do that before? Current state type. Current state dot type, and then this needs to be type of a movement player cutscene move state. Okay, as long as there isn't any wait times on anything, that should be functional. That should at least pause the dialogue until the character has moved. Oh, I remember why we had locking animations. I have the character take a step backwards in this cutscene without actually moving. They just kind of slide back. Oh, it is progressing still. Huh. Any null references or anything? Nope, no errors. So it got past this. Let's put a breakpoint inside of the movement step in here and see what's happening. Like, we should expect it to at least pick a direction. And then we can see if the remaining distance is like going away super quick. Yep, enable. At the very least, it is changing states, so we know that like it is going to the movement state. So something like the sequence is triggering it correctly. Okay, let's try that again. Let's see what we can see with extra information from the debugging. Okay, get rid of the animation breakpoint. Shouldn't need that. Get back into the scene. Okay, we don't care about the animation step stuff. We've resolved all of that. Yeah, all of this can go. We don't need any of these stops here. Again, none of this animation stuff is necessary. Okay, click through this, click through this. Oh. Oh, really? That dialogue, the thief, is supposed to play after the move. So a move should have happened. Actually, multiple moves should have happened. But we didn't hit our breakpoint inside of here? No, we did not. This is auto-changing states. This is our problem. I set up this code off stream last evening to enter into the pause, whenever we pause to go into a cutscene state. Okay. This logic is probably going to need to be a little bit more advanced than this in the long term, but for now, what we can do is... current state? No, it's going to be owner, current state... Come on, there we go. If it doesn't equal the player cutscene state or the movement player cutscene move state, just put this on a new line so it reads a little easier, then we change to the cutscene state. Else, we still should update the state. Which makes this code redundant, but I'm going to see if that at least works. So what was happening was that we were transitioning into the move state and then immediately transitioning out into the immediately transitioning out of that move state and into the cutscene state, which doesn't update movement. And then when we were checking in the sequence to validate that you weren't in the movement state before moving on, that was true because we had immediately moved out. So after this, she should move. She did not. She flickered for a moment and then stopped. Okay. Let's attach the debugger. This logic is bad. If we equal cutscene state or movement state, and then we want to wrap this and make this a knot. That's the better way to do that. So if this is true or this is true, flip it to false. If both of these are false, flip it to true. Okay. Getting there. It's been a day, and we are so close. There's a bunch of cleanup in terms of pixel movements, cameras, bunch of little things, but ideally, if we can have it so that we can actually play through the sequence, see it activate, that would be great. I mean, there's like dialogue alignment. There's a lot of small things that I need to fix here with this, but should be core functionality here. Mostly just watching to see if she moves. We hit it. Okay, what happens now? She's moving. We did move past this state. We didn't wait like we were supposed to. Also, the movement speed is a bit ridiculous. That's based off of the nav mesh, which makes sense. We haven't updated the speed of this nav mesh to represent the new 3D space. This is still moving in 2D, or was set for 2D. Okay. Cool. Oh no, it shouldn't actually, because we're using the core movement system, so it should be based off of this value. Oh, which never gets set. There's some stuff there. Regardless, that's honestly fairly good point to call it. There's like 7 or 8 bugs that I need to clean up. Yeah, the alignment is genuinely off. That's probably to do with where the pivot is, though. Yeah, okay, cool. I'm going to resolve some of these things off camera, but we got to the point where we can see the characters animating. The characters moving. There's some jank still to be resolved. Some bad camera movements. There's general cleanup to the sequence itself, but it is operational. Cool. I'm gonna call it there for today, though. I think we got a good amount of stuff done, and basically made progress on getting this cutscene up and operational again after having been a bit deprecated from the 2D space, and getting it working in 3D has been a bit of a challenge, but honestly it's more just like the code being a bit old and not having been used for a while, and just general issues piling up with us having changed the way things work. But it's almost fully operational. Pretty happy with it. Next steps are going to be, so convert the scene to 3D, adapted the movement system, still need to fix alignment issues with the dialogue boxes. Yeah, the next thing is going into the combat scene. So I don't know if I'll show this. It'll probably hopefully be, I'll have some progress by next weekend if I stream again next weekend. I think I should have time, but the next thing we need to dig into is And honestly, I don't know if I really want to do this on camera, because it might be a lot of trial and error, but I kind of want to explore doing the combat scene in 3D. So making these like billboarded sprites, but maybe instead of having our standard orthographic camera, maybe play a little bit with having like a 3D environment and 3D camera, and like have a little bit more dynamic and less static angle. But I don't know. That's kind of the next thing after I get the cutscene resolved, but there's still more stuff there. However, that's it for this stream. Thanks for watching. Thanks for everyone who stopped in and said hello. It's good fun chat.